If you happen to come across any of these videos or a certain video of mine and you want to know more, or it's not making any sense to you because you started in the middle somewhere, of course, just click on here for newbie day traders. Go to videos, sort by oldest to newest, and just start from the beginning and just follow along. We continue in this video with identifying upward and downward trends by drawing trend lines of support and resistance. We're going to talk a little bit about parallel trend lines versus converging trend lines. All right, so this is part 3 of our first paper trade stocks, which is JPEX, and I'm going to try to throw as much as I can at you in a short amount of time. You will notice before I get started, there's this thing over here, which we'll call a fiasco. All right, but we'll hopefully get to that, but not right this second. We've been learning about and we started applying support and resistance lines, and we continue. First, though, a well-known saying that you should make it known to you. The trend is your friend, and then you can also add to it until it bends. The trend is your friend until it bends. Here is a very simplistic view of an upward trend. Well, and it starts to go down. It doesn't go down as far as the previous low. Then it comes up a little bit higher than the previous high, not as low. So this is like elementary textbook upward trend. And you already know how to draw resistance and support trend lines, so let's do that. Here's support line, and we can project it into the future. And then here is a resistance trend line, and we can project it into the future. Now, these two trend lines are parallel in our very simplistic graph. So if the trend is your friend, then how can it be your friend? Well, the idea is you want to know when to get in and out, when you want to buy, when you want to sell. So if the trend is your friend and you know this is what's going on, let's say that we are here at the present time because you don't know the future, but the trend is your friend. So I'm going to ask you, would you buy stock here? I hope you say no. You want to place a buy order. Well, if you're going to place a buy order here, you want to place it at this level. Let's say that you missed it, but it continues its trend. So it didn't get quite down there to your buy order. You should know this thing is about ready, especially if you see it going up again, then at that point, you're going to want to place, now we're in a different time, right? We've moved into the future, so now we're roughly here. So you're going to place your new buy order at a higher price. So maybe place it here. And let's say you're able to actually buy your stock. And then the stock continues, you got it now. So when would be a good time to get out of the stock? I hope you would say somewhere around that area or before, right? Somewhere in here, somewhere in here, somewhere in this range. But the trend is your friend means that you kind of know, in an ideal world, when to get in and when to get out. To be a little more precise, I would draw a horizontal resistance line here for my upcoming sell order in case I buy. So I, I place. I don't really need. I don't think a support line in this case to buy, because the support line I would draw would probably be the horizontal support line would be here, which is lower than the trend line. So I should place a buy order somewhere around here. But the resistance line is going to be important, because then as the stock moves down, and let's say in an ideal world that I actually bought the stock, I got it at this time in the future. I want to place, so now I'm in the future, right? We've moved up our timeline. We're now somewhere here. And that means that I really shouldn't wait for the stock to reach up here. So my sell order should probably be somewhere maybe in this range. If it goes higher, that's great, fine, but at least I made some money. So then the stock continues, and let's say that it actually went past, like it continued with the trend. That means that I made some money. Horizontal resistance line helped me to know when to get out of a stock safely. And this is on an upward trend. A downward trend is similar. So we have a graph for stock that's trending down, and that means that the next high is lower than the previous high, and the next low is potentially lower than the previous low, and so on. So then we draw a support trending line and a resistance trending line. And let's assume that we are there. This is where we are. Now, you're wondering, okay, when is a good time to get in? Well, we should also probably draw a horizontal support line, because this is as far as we know that it has gone down. The rest of it is projection. Now, if you waited till here, you might have been a little late, but let's suppose that you decide, I'm going to jump in anyway. And so you're going to place a buy order, say, around here. Perhaps you're going to see if it trends up. Let's suppose it trends up and you're here. That means that our time, we're actually now here. And that's our future has become our present. You're there and you bought, and then where would you place your sell order? Well, of course, it would be somewhere at this range here, somewhere in here, and just wait for it. So that is a very simplified way of looking at upward and downward trends. Let's practice a little bit now that we know, very basic upward trend and downward trend. Let's see if we can spot some of these in this chart. This is the JPEG stock that we've been trading. This is actually a full year view, but that's okay. We can start with that. So let me draw a trend line. Let's do one here. So there's our downward trending support line. Let's do another one. Where do we see an upward trend? Where else do we see some? About more? Let's do some more. Let's go to a different scale. I want to go from 1 year view to 1 month view. This fiasco over here that we haven't talked about yet, this here, will affect our 1 month view. So I'm going to drag it out of the way and you'll see the chart change. So I'm going to drag it out of the way and there we go. So now we can draw what looks to be a downward trend. I didn't draw that very well, but you get the idea. That's support. And then we can draw the resistance, and I see another one. So that's some practice at upward and downward trends in our graph, our chart. Back to our year view, let's jump down to 5 days. And again, let's drag this out of the way, which will change our chart, the resolution. And let's see if we can do shorter trends. And can you spot a downward trend? I see one. And there you have it. I want to point something else out since we've already talked about this indicators volume. I wanted to separate that out because it's brighter. Notice that you have more volume here and then, decent volume here. Then it starts getting lower. The higher the volume, the more you can depend on or put some confidence in that your trend line analysis is going to work or help you. Because there's more interest, typically more buyers and sellers making their own independent decisions to buy and sell. So it's more organic. The less volume, the less confidence you should have in your technical analysis. The upward and downward trends that we've been looking at so far, the support and resistance trend lines are parallel to each other. They're not converging, which is something I had showed in a previous video. I want to pull in something that we discussed in a previous video. So let's actually improve or change our trend line here. Let's call this the support and this the resistance. And now you can see that they are converging. That's one thing that I want to say. The other thing that I want to say is if you'll notice here, volume goes from lots of volume to little volume. So as these two lines converge, so for example over here, let's talk about over here. They're parallel. I don't really have to change this too much. Volume here is kind of even, right? But here, there's a definite high to low trend in volume, which makes sense with converging trend lines. And what I'm trying to say is you can expect a breakout when you have high-low volume and converging trend lines. In this case, it broke out downward, not upward. We can also expect that as the volume goes down, the actual swings are getting smaller, which is why the lines are converging. Remember that we had said the trend is your friend, and we saw that with the parallel trend lines. But then the question is, well, how far long is this trend going to last? We don't know until it bends. And so not so easy to tell with parallel trend lines. Here we have the case of converging trend lines. The purple is volume. Typically, as volume increases, because more buyers and sellers, more swing in price, typically, not always. But the fact is that these two lines are converging. Now remember, so we talked about how volume typically is going down, which causes less swing, causing the trend lines to converge. So something has to happen here. And you should be on the lookout for a breakout, meaning is it going to go break out past the resistance or break out below the support. In this video, we talked about identifying upward and downward trend lines, and then we talked about parallel trend lines versus converging trend lines, and we're going to continue talking about trading with trend lines. See you in the next video.